Sometimes it feels so much like a movie, and being a little on the older side, I was a huge fan of the Indiana Jones movies as a kid. They were movies that I grew up with, and Indiana Jones was somewhat of a hero to me. Now, The Great Circle, for me at least, is such a cool bag. It's been both a lot of fun to play and very nostalgia-filled as well. And at this point, I'm sure you've heard a lot about the game, and of course, it's been very well received both by critics and players alike. Now, I have been playing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on PC Game Pass, and this video is sponsored by PC Game Pass, so do check out the details in the video description if you want to know more. You can play it there if you so wish, and it's very easy to do so. Now, the game is set between the movies Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. The premise, of course, is Indy racing against the Nazi villains, because of course, and the idea here is to secure a powerful artifact. Now, the tone captures the essence of Indiana Jones, definitely the mystery, the humour, the high stakes, the globe-trotting adventure, and all the rest of it. And Indy himself is the typical charming Indiana Jones that we know from the 80s movies. Now, Indy himself is voiced by none other than the ever-excellent Troy Baker, and he's done an absolutely excellent job with this, so much so in fact that it makes Indy from The Great Circle completely seamless with Indy from the movies. Now, in terms of the game itself, it very much feels like Indy. Find yourself in the Vatican, the Egyptian pyramids, exotic jungles, and much more. Throughout this video, I'm going to focus mostly on the initial sections of the game, right up until the later sections of the Vatican, and that's largely because I don't want to spoil things for those of you who haven't seen those type of spoilers yet. The music itself is also very much John Williams-esque. And pleasantly, it feels that way without actually feeling like a cheap imitation. It feels, again, just like you'd expect it to. Now, when it comes to the gameplay mechanics, it all takes place in a first-person perspective. And if anything, this is perhaps the only real disappointment I do have with the game. I don't quite understand why they didn't go for an optional third-person perspective as well. Clearly, it is available because when you do some parkour, when you climb along and shimmy along ridges, things like that, the camera does pan out, and you see Indiana Jones from the third-person perspective. But in all other regards, you can only play it first-person. And this is something that, well, my wife, for example, she would have played this game, she would have loved to, but finds first-person very difficult. I guess, though, it is a minor issue because overall, the game has still been very, very enjoyable. Now, as you're roaming around, you have to take the choice, or you can choose scenario to scenario, actually, whether you want to go stealth and exploration over brute force. Although the game is really aimed, it seems, at stealth and exploration. These areas you can see on the screen, they're truly beautiful. Whether you're just walking through a little room and just exploring the various contents of that, what's in the cabinets, what's in the drawers, or whether you're at the heights looking over a beautiful vista, it all looks absolutely stunning. And this is true whether you're on the lower graphical settings or on what they now call supreme graphical settings. They're going above very ultra here all the way to supreme, and yeah, it's PC meltingly good. If you want a game that does look truly fantastic and really pushes the limits of your PC, then Indiana Jones is certainly it. I've been playing this on a Ryzen 7 5800X3D with an RTX 4090. And if I go to the supreme settings and have full-on path tracing, I can get some pretty good frame rates, but yeah, you can see that this game is really pushing at the PC to its limits. Very, very nice to see. But it also works very well on lower settings too, and is still stunningly beautiful there. And talking of the PC, like I said, I've been playing this on PC Game Pass. Now, over the years, I've frequently relied on a PC Game Pass and have been a long-time subscriber. In my view, it's a fantastic deal for anyone on a PC, and not only do you gain access to a massive, ever-evolving library, but there's a lot of high-quality titles there as well. Plus, many of the newest games become available right when they're released, letting you dive straight into the latest experiences without needing to buy each one individually. On top of those Day 1 debuts, you'll find a huge selection of established games well worth exploring. At the moment, I'm really enjoying Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, as well as Octopath Traveler 2. These are all proper PC editions, so you get all the benefits of the platform offers, from flexible graphic settings and smoother frame rates to jumping into multiplayer modes where those are available, and all without extra memberships. And for those multiplayer games you enjoy, there's also robust cross-play support, making it easy to team up with friends regardless of where they play. For more details and to get started, do check out the links provided in the video description. Now, all of this goes a long way to conveying the fact that this really is an indie game. It really does have the aesthetics that you'd expect to see in Indiana Jones. And for me, that just, well, it works so well. Like I say, growing up with the 80s movies especially, the first three, they did have certain aesthetics to them. You could pretty much instantly recognise any shot, any picture that it was from these indie movies, and this game really does capture that. Let me know what you think about that in the comments section. Now, carrying on with the gameplay elements here, there's a heck of a lot of puzzle solving. And yeah, this also is reminiscent of the films, deciphering ancient scripts, aligning mysterious artifacts, and each of these puzzles really does feel handcrafted, and many of them do have some cinematic elements to them as well. Whether you're down underground in some ancient tombs, or really looking at some of the artifacts that are, well, in pretty much plain day, there for everyone to see, but Indy just notices something that everyone else has long missed. Personally, I found the puzzles to be fairly challenging, not too difficult, but also not too easy. The game doesn't drop the answers right into your lap, and that's pretty neat. Same is true for many other areas of the game. In fact, another area that is handled really well is, Indiana Jones' persona. Now, when I was a kid, one of the things that really stood out to me about the movies, perhaps more than the whip and the hat, was how different he seemed depending on where he was. To my young eyes as a kid, it seemed like they were two completely different versions of the same man. There was Dr. Jones, the calm, collected professor in his glasses and suit, standing in front of a classroom of sleepy students. And then there was Indiana Jones, the adventurer with his dusty leather jacket, the fedora pulled low over his eyes, dodging traps, punching people, and swinging over pits of snakes. And to my young brain, it was almost hard to believe that they were the same person. And the game captures this perfectly. The Great Circle has both sides of that. You literally walk through the halls of Marshall College and you see that quieter, more ordinary side of Indy. And you can explore his world with the professor and see the desks and display cabinets filled with artifacts. And then later on, you'll find him in disguise as a priest in the Vatican, and he still has that same mild-mannered temperament, although somewhat quirky, as well as very rough around the edges as well. To me, it was perhaps even more important than many other aspects of the character in the movies, and somewhat remarkably, the game has managed to capture this. Which brings me quite neatly to another aspect of Indiana Jones, and that is the villains. In The Great Circle, the villain is someone known as Voss. He's a Nazi archaeologist who combines the intellectual world of academia with a ruthless ambition, and just like in the classic films, this isn't just a random thug, it's someone who knows what he's after and why, and that makes him all the more threatening. And unlike the grunt soldiers you see throughout the game, Voss can match wits with Indy. He's not just strong-arming his way through, he's deciphering clues, understanding ancient texts, and always trying to be one step ahead. And this really sets up a cat-and-mouse dynamic where you feel that Indy isn't just fighting a brute force, but someone who could outsmart him if he's not careful. Now, I certainly think there's an argument to be made here that the Great Circle has once again defaulted back to the main villains of Indy, which of course is the Nazis. But, it seems to work. I think setting the game in the 30s and really setting up the Nazis in this way blends some historical villainy with a supernatural edge, and that is something that is a proven formula. And Voss really continues this tradition in representing the insidious blend of military power and historical revisionism. And as the story progresses, as you move your way through the game, Voss's presence and motivations really do help shape both the pacing and urgency of the story, and your encounters with him are milestones that remind you of what's at stake if you fail. As you might expect from an Indiana Jones story then, Voss acts as the chief antagonist, and this sets a darker, more serious undertone within the adventure's otherwise playful exploration. His cruelty and determination give the narrative some real teeth, making your victories feel more earned and that much more meaningful. For me then, my experience with The Great Circle has been pretty interesting, not just because that, as a game, this stands out really well on its own terms, it works as a really nice game, but also it just harkens back to the old original Indiana Jones movies. And as I said at the start of the video, with growing up with those movies, they really did mean a lot to me at the time, so being able to not only kind of relive them, but also jump in as the protagonist myself, it really has been a pretty good experience. Do let me know your thoughts and feelings about all of this in the comments section below, because I'd love to hear from you. If you've played it, do let me know what you think. or otherwise let me know if you'd like to play it. My thanks again to PC Game Pass for sponsoring this video. Do check out those links in the video description.